Hello, today I would like to talk about a problem that you may encounter when you work with Ansible. So let's switch to the command line and run this SSH non-host file. And it's empty. Why? Well, I just cleaned it up. I removed all the entries from this file, and by default this file doesn't exist. So usually you have two approaches. You can use SSH keys gen to generate SSH keys, and then automatically .ssh directory will be created and keys will be stored there. And then use SSH to connect to remote host after you copied public keys using SSH copy ID. And it will automatically, after connecting with SSH using public key, create a file non-host. And it will ask you, do you want to add a fingerprint to the non-host file? And the second approach is quite simple. So you have to create manually SSH directory and add manually non-host file, add proper permissions to this file. So we will do this, and I will list it now. And you can see permission, read and write only for a user. Okay, fine. And you will ask me why you removed all the entries from non-host. Because I want to show you a problem that you may encounter when you will try to run Ansible playbook first time. And I'm talking about a situation. By first time, I mean that you connect first time to remote host. And there is no entry in known hosts for this remote host. Okay, so let's do this. cd ansible directory, cat ssh session yum file, and cat servers. Just this way you will understand how it behaves. So we have a simple playbook. Host K3S is a group of remote hosts, and it is picking up host names from the inventory. So if you're curious what inventory is, check my lesson about Ansible. And then you have a simple task, connect via SSH. So for each entry in file servers, do in loop connection with SSH using user Ansible. Simple as that. So first of all, I will try to run it as Ansible playbook. So Ansible-playbook and then ssh-session.yum to run it. And what happened? Well, the same situation that will happen when you will try to manually connect. So let's see list of my files in my Ansible directory, and I have something like SSH copy ID, SSH keyscan, SSH session. So what I have in SSH session? Cat SSH session, but this time SH, and I have a simple bash script that will do the job. So let's run it. So SSH session.sh and Control D to log out. Eventually, the best option is to vim it and Ansible $I, and then it should be something like remote like this, and exit, and it will do the job. Why I am doing it? Because if you will cut the SSH copy ID, you can see it is doing the job. And if you will cut add user, so you can see that after connection, I have something like a command in quotes. So you can do this way in quotes, right? So now I will rerun the script this time and it will do the job for you in the background. And now let's edit the known host file. And here we have entries 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Each time it has a unique ID session. So you can see the pattern. Pipe 1 pipe, then random string equals, pipe, random string equals. So each time the pattern is the same, but the session ID is different for each connection. And what is actually, here you can see type of the key, and then you can see some kind of hash. This is a hash for public key that has been found on a remote host. So in fact, for each remote host, it has found 2 public keys. One SSH-ed25519 and one ECDSH-SHA2-NISTP256. And you can see we have 3 keys here, 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, and 3. Nice. Is it enough? Yes, it is. This is something that is working and you need entries here. So you will ask me, what if? Well, you connected with SSH, but you didn't connect with Ansible because I break it. So now let's try to connect with Ansible and we will see will it work. Just because in the beginning we connected with the simple SSH and now Ansible is connecting. It is also using SSH, but now session ID should be different and unique for Ansible. Let's do this. And now you can see that adding unique ID for SSH is not a solution, because for Ansible SSH session, it will try to create a totally separate unique ID in known hosts. So let's try to type yes. Then type yes once again, and yes once again, and I will not repeat typing yes all the time. I will hit enter, and now you can see it failed. There is a problem. It hangs. Okay, yeah, it connected to CM4. It did the job for one host. And if you will rerun it once again, then it will ask you for a fingerprint for worker 1, and then it will connect to CM4 and worker 1, but it will break for worker 2. And then if you will rerun the playbook, once again, it will ask you to add a fingerprint for a worker 2. And finally, it will work. But imagine the situation that you have 10,000 remote hosts. You don't want to do this manually. So instead, let's find out, is there any other solution? Instead, what you can do is something like this, and I'm going to show you. But first of all, I will clear up once again the whole known host file. And this time I will run the Ansible playbook, but with something like this. And I will show you. Here we go, and it will work like a charm. I do not recommend using this strict host key checking now in environment that is compromised. So you need to be sure that your entire environment is secure. Okay, fine. So now you are wondering, is there any other solution that is working and I can use it? Yes, it is, but this is a solution that I do not recommend, and I will explain it Why? First of all, before I will start explaining next solution, I will show you the content of non-host. And now you can see we have entries, only 3 that are in fact necessary for Ansible connection. You don't need any other connection because for Ansible this is enough. Okay, so someone will ask, well, you can add strict hotkey checking to the file to this session, SSH session. I will do this for you, and I have do SSH or strict hotkey checking now. I already added it, and it's working. Yes, you are correct. It is working, but this is not a secure approach. You should get rid of this from here. Then let's try to run it. Are you sure? Do you want to connect? Well, yes. Yes. And yes. So earlier I was adding it the first time to this file just because I wanted to add, and I had to be sure that entries in this file for SSH session will be added automatically without typing yes all the time. So you can use it this way I provided, and I will get rid of this, but only if you exactly know what you're doing, and if you exactly know that you're not compromised and your configuration is clean, or for example you installed the virtual machine or bare metal, you installed the operating system on it, then you installed Ansible on it, and the machine is clean, the environment, remote host to which you will be connecting to are not compromised, they are secure, then you can do something like this only once, because you need entries in non-host to avoid man-in-the-middle attack. So let's vim this, and if you will just add it like this, it will work like a charm. So for do blah blah blah, and then exit from each server, and it will create entry for each remote host for SSH session, but this is something different than Ansible SSH session. So you need to know the difference. So my SSH session SH is for SSH, and SSH but YAM file is for Ansible. Playbook is for SSH for Ansible. That differs. Now I hope you understand how everything is working, and I do not have to explain anything else. Approach number 2 that I do not recommend, and I will explain you why. First of all, type export. And here you see global exports, global variables in my environment, in my hosts on an operating system level. So someone proposed something like this, to export it like this and add it temporarily to global variables, because this way you will add it temporarily. By temporarily, I mean that if you will log out from SSH session that you're currently logged in, like I am, this entry in export will gone. Also, I do not recommend this option to be added permanently to global variables in your operating system. Why? If you will do this, yes, Ansible will work. Also, SSH session will work. So my script will work without adding this, something like this. So I will now skip it. Without this, or without, this like this way, SSH, because SSH like this will also work then Ansible, for example, the username and host name. Well, if you will export Ansible _host_key_checking equals false to global variables, and then you will be able to connect this way, and it will not ask you for anything. And even if you will not have an entry in known host file, it will not alert you about adding the fingerprint to known host file, but it will connect automatically. That is why it is not secure. And moreover, yes, it will not ask you, so it will not add an entry to known host. It will just connect automatically. That is why I do not recommend this option, this export Ansible host key checking. Because this is something that, yes, it's working, but we need entries in known host file to be there. And they will be added only once with the previous solution that I provided. And thanks this, you are secure. Because next time when you will try to connect with Ansible, and now I will show you this, we have entries here added for Ansible SSH session, not for SSH session. This is very important. Then if I will run the Ansible playbook once again without any other additional option like SSH session, it will work like a charm. Here we go, it's working. Why? Because we have entries in known hosts, we have hashed public keys, so there, and we have hashes there added in known host. We have, yes, unique ID for Ansible for each remote host. Then it will work. So the best approach is just to create a list of servers like I did, all the servers. So you can provide here 10,000 IP addresses or host names, for example. Then create a simple SSH session YAM file. So you create simple Ansible playbook, for example, this. And at the end, you run it this way, like I provided in the beginning. And this is the approach that you may use in secure environment, in the environment that is not compromised. And if you will do this, it will do the job. Like this. And there is the third option that you may encounter when you will look for the solution in the internet, and I will show you this. And cat ssh keyscan.yum, and I have also, because I did it, I have also a bash script, ssh keyscan, something like this, and I hashed 2 entries because then I decided that I will also use a dig short. So this is the solution. The first file is Ansible playbook, the second is a bash script that is using ssh keyscan command and dig short. Dash capital H for ssh keyscan means man keyscan. It means that hash all hostname and addresses in the output. Hashed names may be used normally by SSH and SSHD, but they do not reveal identifying information should the file's contents be disclosed. Excellent. So by default, when you're using SSH or Ansible SSH, it behaves like keyscan with -h. It hashes all hostname and addresses in the output. So thanks to this, you do not have any entry in known hosts that is a plain text public key, but instead it is a hash. So that is why it is secure. Something really simple, like known host, avoid man-in-the-middle attack. Because if the public key will be changed on a remote host, or if you will connect to the man-in-the-middle server, computer, laptop, instead of connecting to a real remote host, then the public key will be different, and you will be warned that public key is changed, and this is a nasty behavior, and you're warned. You will see alert on the screen, and you're sure that there's something wrong. Public key is different on a remote host, and in known host I have a hash that is compared, and well, it doesn't fit. I mean, they are not the same. That is why you will receive an alert. So you have then something I call a situation that is an emergency situation, and normally in the company you can ask in your team, did someone change the public key on a remote host for security reason? But if no one changed it and no one has an access to the remote host because you're the only one administrator, this is only an example of course, then you may be sure that you're compromised. So someone has an access to the remote host, this is the scenario number one, or someone connected and is a middle in the middle. So you have man in the middle attack in your company, and it can be even some kind of small router using a IoT device like Raspberry Pi, for example, or something else, and just connected it to the network, and it behaves like man in the middle, and you're compromised. So you will have to make a scan of the network and find out what is going on there, and find the device or the attacker, and secure the network, secure the environment, secure the server. That is why I presented this script, because what SSH keyscan is doing, in fact, it is scanning the remote host and is adding all the unnecessary scripts to the known host. And I will run first of all the playbook. So Ansible playbook, then SSH keyscan.yaml, and it will do the job. Because I already have entries in known host for Ansible, so it will work like a charm, but I want to show you the content of known host, and what it did, it added 16 keys. So now we have 24, and so it scanned all the keys that are stored in the remote hosts, and they are unnecessary because, for example, we have SSH RSA keys here, for example, and here. And these keys are RSA keys that are shared between my remote host, because I want to be able to connect them each other, from CM4 to worker 1, from worker 1 to worker 2, from worker 2 to worker 1 and CM4. And if you will imagine the situation that you will add something like this to your known host, so let's say that I will quit it. My Rancher server is a server number 1. My CM4 is a server number 2, and from CM4 I can connect, because I have entry and public keys in this CM4 remote host. It can connect to something else, some other server, that we will call it a server number 3. And we want to avoid a situation that server number 1, this Rancher server, is able to connect to server number 3, because only CM4, so our server number 2, is allowed to connect to server number 3. And in this situation, when you added to server number 1 entries into known host, it will be able to connect to server number 3 without asking about anything, without warning that the entry is not added in known host, and do you want to add a fingerprint? And yeah, for security reason, it's not a good idea to add such keys to this host. So you need to understand that in known hosts, you need only proper entries, only for those remote hosts to which in fact you should be connected and you should be allowed to, and not to the other's machine. This is something that you need to understand. This is a very dangerous situation. So yes, if you're using tools, you need to exactly know what they are doing, how they behave, and what kind of danger they may create. So what kind of impact they have. Thanks to this, you will be able to work more carefully with tools. So now what I should do, I should go to the end of this file and get rid of all the unnecessary entries from this and leave only those 3. That's it. Because for Ansible, I need only those 3 entries. Nothing more, and if I will rerun the session yum, I will be able to run it without any problem. And this is the secure approach. The only secure approach that you should perform. You should not try to do anything else. This is the only one approach that you can use. And under any circumstances, do not try any other solution from the internet, please. Okay? And do not use SSH keyscan if you do not know what you are doing, and use it only when you know exactly what you're doing and from which host you need entries for which kind of connection. That is why you need to have a knowledge about the tool you're using and how exactly it is doing. Sometimes you have to understand that so simple solutions like known host, like SSH keyscan, SSH session, Ansible SSH session are complicated, are complex, and you need to dig deeply to understand the core, the roots of the problem and the behavior of the problem and how everything is created and how everything has been invented and how it is working to be able to work properly in your company or at home. Doesn't matter. Right? So now I think it's a good idea to say goodbye. I wish you enjoyed this lesson. I hope you will understand everything what happened here. You will be able to learn it carefully, and then you will be able to properly add proper entries into known host. Thank you very much. Have a nice day or night. Take care. Bye bye.